Welcome to the first episode of Mistakes Were Made, a podcast about leadership, learning, and figuring it out the hard way. I've been wanting to do this for a while. After years of mentoring others and being mentored myself, I kept coming back to one thing. The best lessons come from the mess, the honest, unpolished, I probably shouldn't admit this out loud kind of stories. So that's what this podcast is about. Those stories were the ones that I would tell people when I was in mentoring sessions and typically gave people some guidance or ideas of not what they should do, but what's possible, or it's okay to be stressed out, or it's okay to be in a pretty rough spot. And I really wanted a way to scale what I was doing. And I thought about blogs and I thought about a Slack community and I threw a lot of ideas around, but really I think I was just procrastinating about doing a podcast, pulling those amazing people together, getting these conversations recorded and sharing them out so that way everyone can learn from people that I certainly have learned from. So I'm thrilled to kick it off with someone who's taught me a bit over the last few years, and that's Jeff Smith. Jeff's career spans technical leadership, scaling startups, building high-performance teams across APJ. I say that because I worked for him. He's lived and worked across the US, Japan, China, New Zealand, and more. He somehow still finds time to brew beer, and he even grows olives on a farm. In this episode, we dive into what it really takes to build trust and credibility as a leader, not in theory, but in practice. I think everyone's going to get a lot out of this episode. In it, Jeff shares a bunch of just golden knowledge and some really useful tips and tricks. For instance, the fastest way to build trust, be useful. We're going to hear about how he shows up to do the job, even the grunt work, because it builds credibility far faster than any job title ever will. He also shares some of the biggest mistakes, things like trying to be the smartest person in the room. We're going to explore how learning to step back and let others lead is often the first and hardest leadership lesson. That's certainly one that I've experienced and seen happen over and over again. There's some really good conversation in this around people not following titles, but following consistency. The little things matter, replying fast, showing up, following through. It sets the tone more than a leadership playbook ever will. And there's also some really, really nice stuff around handling performance issues with empathy and clarity. And we're going to discuss how to lead under pressure. There's some great lessons in there about staying calm when everything's going sideways. And I think that's something everyone experiences at some point in their career. And lastly, I really liked his thoughts around you just not being able to do this alone. The importance of mentorship, reflection, and having someone to help you shift your perspective is just as important as any training program. So with that, I'm going to kick it on, play the recording, play the podcast. I really hope you get something out of it. And before I do that, though, I just wanted to say, hey, love the feedback, please. This is the first time I've done this. I've been talking about it for a long time. Please leave some comments in the blog posts, leave some comments on the video, shoot me a note. Any suggestions for someone I could bring into this would be amazing. Tips, tricks on how to be a podcaster. I have zero aspirations of this being a viral video, but I'd like to give it a good go. I'd like to have something that does add a lot of value. So all your comments and constructive criticism, certainly welcome. So with that, I'm going to roll the tape. So we'll do an introduction, but I want to start with my fun fact about you, Jeff. And this is the thing that I absolutely love about you, is we've traveled through Asia. We've been to a whole bunch of different places, and doesn't matter where we went, doesn't matter time of day, time of year, the country, you could find a decent craft beer anywhere, which always blew my mind. So if no one watches this podcast, we're going to do that whole beer thing, because that was always a hoot.
And it was a lot harder back then. Now it's a lot easier to find craft beer.
That is the apps.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, come on. Yeah. Bangkok, Taipei,
Yeah.
China. We were doing pretty good.
Yeah. I even remember once you brought guabao for me from Taiwan to Japan as like a so thank you for all of that being spoiled, but also for doing this with me. So
yeah.
Listen, this is going to go out to friends and family. Hi, Mum.
Yeah.
But a lot of people won't know you. So a quick intro. Who are you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to have to give you a little bit of chronological intro because that sets a context for a lot of who I became and who I am. So right out of university, I moved to Japan to work for NTT. I was one of the first non-Japanese they'd ever hired as a permanent employee. Dropped into a 220, 280,000 person company in a very rigid, hierarchical organization, but it teaches you a lot about how large organizations work. And particularly, I knew I wanted to live and work and sell in Japan. So that was the chance to understand that. So a lot of anybody's experience right out of university is your formative perception of what management is, how a company works, how you interact with your peers and such. So that set the stage for a lot of things. And after that, started my own company after they had moved me, Entity had moved me to Silicon Valley. Then a multiple series of Silicon Valley-based startups. Usually, as the first person in Asia, you end up building a business, and next thing you know, somebody goes, "You're the leader of the team." So
It's that
that's
guy.
kind of that's kind of been the cycle. But it all started out of Japan. And as we go through this conversation, there'll be things that I refer to that probably would, to a lot of listeners, if they know anything about Japan, will feel rather Japanese as opposed to American. So,
Yeah. You know, the Japan thing's really interesting because I think a lot of people have these preconceived notions of Japan. So I'm excited to share some of those nuances with people that maybe don't really understand it, haven't done business
yep,
there, and have only seen
yeah,
it. So that's really good. So going sort of back, you've
hmm
done a lot of things that people sort of dream about. Like you've changed companies, you've changed cultures, you've changed language all at once by going into NTT. You've bounced around Asia doing a bunch of startups. Did you go in there confident, or are you kind of that like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to wing it. Like, how do you do that? How do you get brave enough to do that?
I think it came back to when I was in high school and university. One, just being curious and interested. You have to remember that was the period Japan was going crazy. Everybody was interested in Japan.
Mm,
But yeah, to think I'm just going to pack up and move from the US Midwest and move to Japan, yeah, it was scary, but it was
yeah,
exciting. But I always thought of myself as sort of a risk taker. It's just, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to do something. And honestly, I wanted to get out of the Midwest. So I pretty much went as far away as I could. But was I always confident? No, but I was always curious and excited, and that momentum, that excitement can keep you going for a long time while you figure it out.
yeah. So one of the things that I started this podcast journey on is the whole idea of
hmm
building trust and credibility. And I
hmm
put it down as a first-time leader, but really, I just want to say trust and credibility as a person, especially when you're maybe jumping in to lead a team, but you might join a new team. You might, I don't know, have to go off and do something totally outside the business world and be the person that jumps in and takes charge. And that I don't know. I've seen that go a few different ways. I've seen people be very authoritarian. I've seen people sort of leaning the other way. What's your style? How do you typically go into these new cultures, new businesses, and find a way to show up?
So I think, moving to Japan, I didn't know anybody there. And after that, a lot of these companies, you end up with a network and you know some people, but you're dropped into a completely new group of people and new environment. The first thing I try to do is be useful. It sounds really simple, but I think even in the early days when you and I started working together, I'm like, I'll answer an RFP. I'm the boss, but one, it'll help me to learn. The other is nobody likes answering RFPs, and if somebody wants to do it for you, you're happy. So, I mean, to me, it was an opportunity to really get a good view of a product, for example. But I like to be useful. I have kind of what I guess people call servant leadership point of view. That again goes back to a lot of things in Japan, that the humility and the willingness of everybody has to be pulling on the oars. And building that trust oftentimes is by being the person who says, yes, I'll take care of that. I'll do that. It's not below
Mm,
me, if you will.
mm. You know, that RFP thing, that's stayed in my head for a long time, and I've passed that nugget of wisdom to so many
Yeah.
people. You
Yeah.
know, the new person, go in humble, go in seeking to understand, and RFPs, it's like jumping on a grenade a little bit, but it's a
Yeah.
good way to learn, right?
Yeah.
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 So then, so that's one thing. Going in, you're open, you're going to learn. One of the things that a lot of first-time leaders that I've seen, I've promoted, I've coached, mentored, and I've made these mistakes. You go in and you just kind of like, oh, I can't be seen as weak. I can't be seen to make a mistake. And I think that's such a miss. I think everyone needs to be more open in sharing mistakes, which is why I'm calling this Dolkey podcast Mistakes Were Made, because
Uh-huh.
everyone does it. Everyone learns from them, but no one seems
Yeah.
willing to make them. No one seems okay with a culture that embraces them. So I'm curious, tell me about mistakes. How do you admit mistakes as a leader, and how do you embrace a culture or build a culture that values mistakes?
I think my point of view on this starts with when you've been a top performing individual contributor, you're viewed as the expert. You don't make mistakes because you've risen to such a level. You are the guru. People come to you. And to step away from that and put other people forward on your team, now you've become the leader, and not be the one jumping in to have the answer. One, because you have to develop those other people.
Yeah.
Two, because very quickly they become much more experts at anything than you do, because they're still doing it day to day and you're doing less of it.
Yeah.
And as far as, making mistakes, I think that was one of my mistakes early on, was being the smartest guy in the room, having the answer right away, stepping on other people's toes, not giving them space, and being taken aside by somebody and said, shut up. Literally, you have to sit there and count to 10 and wait for somebody else to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of that is in Japan, I was able to be quite dominant. And then I came to Silicon Valley, and the tables turned. There's a lot of really, really smart people around. So then you start feeling competitive in those environments and such. So the fundamental mistake I made early on was trying to be the one with the answers and not stepping back and letting other people shine. And over time, I learned actually more and more to put those people forward, and if they weren't ready, help coach them so that they could step forward in that. But that was probably the biggest mistake I made early on as a leader.
It's such a fundamental change when you put that up front in hiring, or, you and I in the past would talk about making sure we hire people smarter than us. And
Yeah.
there's so many people that aren't comfortable with that. And hiring someone smarter than us and giving them space to figure it out seems to be the big hurdle for, I think, a lot of people shifting into a leadership role. Yeah.
The cliche in Silicon Valley is A players hire A players, B players hire C players. And it's cliche, but it's said for a reason.
Yeah.
To have the confidence and the humility, and actually the greediness to say, I'm going to hire the best people I can because they're going to ultimately make me successful, make me look good. You have to aim to be that A person who's hiring A or A plus people.
Yeah. So then let's look at egos. Egos are abound in this industry for sure. How do you avoid letting that power of leadership go to your head? You've got the title, you've got the promotion, maybe, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it goes straight to their head, right?
I think, again, as I said earlier, I have this history of going into a new company in a new technology space as the first or one of the first,
Mm.
and building up again. So that keeps you humble, and it manages that ego, because you're not coming in and being made the boss over top of an existing group of people. And when that's happened, the first time you and I worked together, I came in, it was roughly 20 of us, and suddenly I'm in charge of a group of people I didn't hire and stuff like that. But I think the in that case, because it's probably the first time I was brought in at on top of such an existing team of that size, not just two or three people, the ego didn't have a chance, if you will, because, and again, it's because I put myself in these positions. I didn't know much about data and storage and virtualization. I had some exposure. I was not an expert. So there was the chance to learn, but also to work. And you and me and the Australia team, for example, very early on had a pretty good conversation in that room,
Yeah.
where I wasn't trying to be the boss, but I was trying to share some points of view and some experiences so everybody could get to know me a little bit better, and look at me also as just another human being, and we build a relationship, not oh, I'm the boss and this is how you're going to do things around here. We talked about how we would do things is kind of the way I recall it.
Yeah, I remember that room fondly. Uh, it was a really nice exercise because
Hmm.
you had a way of leveling everyone where we all could give feedback. We could all be, now we call it radical candor. Back then, I think we just call
Hmm.
it being brave because you were
Yeah.
new and people were new and we were growing
Yeah.
and some different personalities. And I liked that. Where did that come from? The way you did that room, I don't know if you remember, was that something you learnt in a particular culture or place, or was that yours?
Yeah, I remember, but I don't remember thinking why or how or, oh, I should do it this way. I think, again, a lot of it is instinct and maybe some influence from Japan of you in Japan. I mean, just like we say in Australia and New Zealand of the tall poppy thing, right? The nail that stands out gets pounded down is a thing in Japan too. So you go in there into any situation, you try not to stand out. It
Mm,
becomes a little bit of a negative in Japan. So my first instance is how do I not come in and throw my weight around? It's just part of, I guess, how I was raised as a professional, if you will, coming from that
yeah,
culture. The other is I truly felt I had something useful to share, that AIC, the appreciation, influence, and control thing. But in order to share it effectively, I had to practice what I preach,
yeah, yeah.
right?
So
So,
that
yeah,
practicing what you preach is almost like a proof point. Like, I'm doing this. So it's not to say as, yeah, I'm doing this. I think that was pretty powerful. Something else that I really liked about our time working together was when you said something, you would often back it up with the evidence of why you thought it. And I liked that. And I'll give you an example. You'd done a couple of startups, and we were at some interesting points in the company we were at where tensions were higher or anxiety
hmm,
over certain things happening. And a
hmm,
couple of times you'd sort of swoop in and be like, hang on a minute. This is normal. This is why it's normal. This is the
yeah,
context for what we're going through. And
yeah,
here's maybe
yeah,
what you should worry about. And I've stolen that when people watch this that have worked
yeah,
for me. They're like, oh, that's where he got it. Because I did the same thing
yeah,
in my last hypergrowth company. It was really like, hey, let me tell you where I learnt that thing, and that
yeah.
seems to help with the credibility.
Yeah, and I think, the example I always use is companies at that stage are like adolescents. They don't
Mm,
know if they want to be children. They don't know if they want to be adults. Different
yeah.
parts are growing at different times. The hands and the feet are just clumsy, and yeah, emotionally it's a mess. And companies are, to me at least, like that.
Mm,
And when you talk to people about that, it makes sense.
mm,
And sharing experience that makes sense intuitively helps with that credibility, I
mm,
believe,
mm,
because you're relating. You're not
mm,
just saying, hey, this is the way it is. You guys have to understand this is the way the company is. When you get further in a company, in my experience, and you're being told communicate this on down,
yeah.
and you don't have the opportunity, you're not allowed to, or you don't even know the context, and it's just you have to do this, it becomes harder. And in those cases, I've felt that I've lost my credibility. I'm
Mm,
playing the I'm your boss card, and you just have to do it because that was played on me.
mm,
And I think cultures that even in earlier stages work that way create that shit flows downhill type of
mm,
effect.
mm,
And I think that it becomes management and not leadership, and it becomes
yeah.
non-inspirational.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found myself doing over the last couple of startups or companies is creating a culture of we can ask questions, we can negotiate, we can push back. If I say something you don't agree, you need to tell me. That's the pact.
Yeah,
But every now and then there'll be that one thing that maybe comes from up high or is just something that we can't share the context on. And
yeah,
I found the teams more forgiving when I was always upfront, like
yeah, yeah,
99% of the time, it's going to
yeah,
be this is our team culture, and
yeah, yeah,
1% of the time we're going to have to do this other thing.
yeah,
But we'll call it out. We'll say this is the other
yeah,
thing now,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's certainly helped. Yeah,
Yeah, there's just that there is no questioning this. It's just that we have to do it. Trust me, we've always talked about it before. This one, there's just
yeah.
no wiggle room. So just bite down,
Just do
just
it.
get it done.
So we're talking a lot about the team cultures and having that culture of communication. But there's also, especially as the teams get big, like some of your teams have swelled to hundreds. How do you then set that clear expectation? Like, hey, yeah, we all are individuals, but this is the expectation. How does that work?
That's an interesting one because it gets harder and harder the larger the team and the organization gets. And that's why you end up with all kinds of other management techniques and processes and documents and things. And you can just follow whatever process the OKRs and this and that. But I think people just fall into that as busy work. For me, the first and foremost is that, kind of leading by example, walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And it comes first with being super responsive.
Mm-hmm.
If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If if I can reply to that email in 2 minutes, that whole getting things done point of view, I'd make sure I replied, because it creates this sense of everybody else. If you can, you reply. It keeps the momentum. I've learned from a number of leaders, founders, and executives over the years is it's that momentum, that pace. When I worked for Apogee, Chet Kapoor was famous for, you say, hey, what are you going to do? How'd that customer meeting go? Oh, I'm going to follow up with them tomorrow. He goes, why don't you follow up with them
Do it
right
now.
now? Yeah. So you create that sense of urgency, not panic, but you lead by example by always doing it yourself. You don't smack other people around for it. And
Mm.
I think a number of those things. If you're going to go out eating and drinking, you're responsible. You don't go out of control. You don't waste company money. You say, hey guys, we got to cut it. We got to be in the office tomorrow morning. Every little thing, everybody's watching you. And I think that's really, really important, not just management, leader, company, process, one-on-ones, everything else, but it's who you are as a human being and how you act.
Mm. There's like an element where people want to work with good people. And I think when you're good and you're upfront and you communicate well, you set that good example, people will come on that journey with you.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I, I value that. And I think knowing when to call it quits, hey, everyone, let's calm down, or let's do the right thing, or let's call out something that's not right. I think having that in a very clear way, in a
Yeah.
predictable way, where your teams
Yeah.
know what to expect. I've
Yeah.
always seen that come back to me just in comments. You see it in 360s. You
Yeah.
see it when you leave a
Yeah.
business and people are
Yeah.
saying nice things about you. So yeah, that's something that I've seen a lot. Yeah.
If you're known as being an ethical, good person, I think it goes a long way that when time gets tough,
Mm,
things happen, the benefit of the doubt goes to you.
mm.
I'm going to trust this person. So I fully agree with what you said on that. Is I think most people want to work with good people, not
Yeah.
just smart people, great people, just good human
Good people.
beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen a few times, is, especially in Asia, in
Uh-huh.
APJ, you got so many different cultures, and
Yeah.
typically you end up with cliques. You end up with, whether it's the Australians and the Kiwis, whether
Uh-huh.
it's however the dice lands. And there's sometimes this perception where it's maybe based on cultural lines, maybe it's
Mhm.
based on age, maybe it's based on previous company, like we worked together in a previous business, where there either is perceived or there is a
Mhm.
bias,
Mhm.
looking after your friends. And I know that's something that's
Mhm.
popped up in a few businesses that you and I have crossed through, where there's a perceived bias because people had a pre-existing working relationship.
Mm.
Is that something that you've seen play out, and is that something you've had to address before?
I've been accused of it. I've been the subject of it, and it's human nature. Um, there's a shortcut in the communication of somebody you know. You can confide in them because they understand the context. Um, you have to be conscious of it. Um, if you over rotate and you try to act like you're not giving that person, some benefit of the relationship, and you bias and you try to become more friendly and more connected to the other people, it can also backfire. I think it's also recognizing that some of those people who are feeling outside don't even know how, or they may not even recognize it themselves, that they're feeling outside of that clique. So some of you are going to have to just divide and conquer and spend real time communicating and working. So I'll give an example from the last company with the China team. I got invited to their offsite. That was the first time I had spent several days only with them, not SKO, not with just a few of them in Beijing or in Shanghai, really being together for several days. And that changed the relationship with them. They didn't feel like, oh, Jeff is spending time with Japan or Jeff is spending time with Australia. It created a connection. So you need to find, I believe, opportunities to be just with whatever that group of people is. And for us, oftentimes in global or theater roles, it's the different languages and the different cultures.
Yeah.
That to me was the most enriching way to build that connection. And those people still ping me every once in a while to say hi and everything else. So they talk about that few days that we were all together. So there's no easy way. We're humans. We will gravitate to what feels comfortable. I think, looking back, almost everybody would say, Jeff spends a lot of time with the Japanese. It's because they don't understand half of what's going on, and it's you can talk to them and make sure everything's okay, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Australians and the Kiwis will take care of themselves. They're there in an English-speaking environment. They'll be fine. So I also sometimes over-rotated to North Asia, for example, just to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah. And again, I think that comes down to putting that out and up front and challenging those perceptions and biases pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also, a thought popped into my head around when you do go into an APJ role, you have to have the utmost of curiosity for every single corner of your patch. Like for me, I absolutely would love going to Korea, and I had this amazing Korea team, and I would just go in there, just, hey, everyone, I don't know any of this stuff, teach me. And I think they really appreciated, I hope so. I always felt that they appreciated me leaning in and asking what's happening, wanting to help them, but also going in there saying, I don't know these bits, with a clear intent to help.
Yeah.
Not everyone does that. Not everyone can do that. Yeah.
They like to sit in the office and they don't want to go out and be part of what's really happening on the front lines.
Yeah, I've seen it, not for a while, but I've seen it a few times. So it's hard. It is hard. To close this bit out, the treating everyone fairly bit. What happens when the standards slide? Whether it's unintentionally or just the way companies sort of go about their scaling. What happens when that standard slides?
The first is if you're, a higher level manager, you're managing managers. You go talk to your managers first and say, I've observed this. Or, hey, you turn it the other way around. How do you think things are going in terms of people's work ethic, sense of urgency, whatever is slipping, and let them play it back for you. And then you say, okay, I understand what you're saying. There is a perception, my perception, other people have brought it up that there's some gaps here. Does that seem consistent? Because they may just say, oh, this group of people over here have a salesperson they're working with who is a complete disaster, and that's what caused problems. Then you go fix that. You have to open it up to, do you recognize to the manager that something is going on? And if you do you have an idea as to what's causing it? And is it something that we can fix? Because there are extenuating circumstances in a lot of the cases. But yeah, when companies get bigger, teams get bigger, it becomes easier to hide. So then the next thing is skip level interviews. I love skip level interviews. I love having a chance to talk with people. It scares some people, and especially in Asia with all the hierarchy. But I've always tried as a leader, as we've been talking all along, to make that connection and go out and eat street food together, etc. People see me hopefully as a normal human being, well, maybe crazy normal human being, but being able to have some of those conversations. Ideally, when you are traveling and you can do it face to face, hey, let's go have a coffee. I want to catch up. And that allows you to tap into what's the real feeling. Sometimes the managers have a filter, or they are being filtered too. That skip level interview also oftentimes maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, will result in somebody saying, hey, that conversation we had, this things came up. You don't go solve it directly with that person. You're going to have to bring in the manager, unless it's about the manager, and then you got to triangulate that whole thing.
Navigate that.
But I think a lot of times the Yeah, it's that the book, The Founder's Mentality. That just maniacal focus on the front line, that that sense of passion and urgency on behalf of the customer. If you can't find that, if you can't have that conversation, if you don't see people feeling that, you've got to tell them that's our mission, right? And either you're on this mission or you're not on that mission is what it ultimately comes down to. But by back to what we were talking earlier, by walking the walk,
Yeah.
being passionate, being engaged, and having that founder's mentality as well, I think you can convey that. And when it's not happening, you can say, you're the outlier. You're not doing what we need, what our customers need. And
Yeah.
you can call that out. But you can't call it out very easily if you haven't been having the good open conversations with the managers in between and with the individuals as best you can.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it all really just comes down to that great communication, and in matrixed organizations, it's so much more important too. Navigating
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it's conflicting KPIs or
Yeah.
people get paid in different ways
Yeah.
or just communications
Yeah. And
culture. Like
sometimes
it's
it becomes
hard,
as
right?
simple as what have you been told are your goals,
That's
your
right.
KPIs?
Yeah.
Sometimes just understanding that you're being sent on a different mission. That's why
Yeah.
this is not connecting.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just got to be aware and ask about those things sometimes.
I had an interesting example of that a couple of years ago where there was this amazing tension in the team and I was trying to figure it out. And you can kind of almost internally be like, there's something I'm missing here. And yeah, it just
Yeah.
came down
Yeah.
to the base KPIs were
Yeah.
wildly opposed and just
Yeah.
connecting someone in HQ fix that. So yeah. You touched on those meetings and the skip levels. Let's talk one-on-ones for a bit because all new leaders have this checklist, right? Like I'm a manager now. I do one-on-ones because that's what my manager did with me. Um, but no one really teaches you how to do them. You typically learn through that
Yeah.
experience of sitting through them, and the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
someone else did them is probably not going to work
Yeah.
for you or your new team or new
Yeah.
business. Tell me, what's your approach to one-on-ones and how they can help build that trust?
So I'll tell you about the ideal method because it never stays ideal. As you and I know, well, oftentimes our one-on-ones were very casual because
Yeah,
stuff was going fine.
yeah,
Um, there's two aspects of having a one-on-one conversation, not necessarily the one-on-one.
mm,
One is, hey, how's the business? How's the projects you're working on? It's activity focused. The other is, how are you as a human? How are you developing inside the company? And it's the coaching. And ideally, you want those to be two separate calls. Right. So I know in the sales organization, oftentimes I've been on kind of two on ones, and it's all just oftentimes with a not so good manager talking about the number. A one on one is not a forecast call.
yeah,
But I think the same thing with technical, SEs and such. We tend to, it's easier for everybody to talk about the business, the work, and not about the coaching and the development and what do you want out of your position in your career here, until the person's so dissatisfied that they're going to quit and then they suddenly have that conversation with you. That's where you've made the mistake. But it's easy to fall, as I was saying at the beginning of this, into this habit of, everything's going okay, we'll just catch up, how's it going, okay, or hey, we'll meet over a beer. And I've got to get better at that, to say, we're still going to keep talking about at least a couple of these topics, but it doesn't always have to be bam, 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 bam through that, because then it becomes rigorous,
yeah,
and regimented, and people don't feel like they can open up. And sometimes everybody's busy, and you just say, we're going to skip this one-on-one, but I do this as a manager. I want you to think about this, and
mm,
it'll be some new topic. So next time we talk, we'll have something to talk about.
yeah,
And we'll make time for it. Will I catch
yeah,
it on the regularly scheduled one or not? Um, and again, COVID was the hardest part of this, because you're doing one-on-ones and everybody's already sick and tired of Zoom.
yeah,
Face to face was always so much nicer to do one-on-ones.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just, there's the body language. There's just, hey, we're in this together. It was so much more natural, and it became very difficult.
mm,
Fortunately, it was with a team that we had all been together for a long time, and all of a sudden we were not able to see each other face to face. I couldn't imagine joining a new company or building a new team
did
during
that,
that period. I know it,
did
it, it
that.
would have been really tough.
It was really
It's
hard.
very tough. Yeah. That's really
It was
tough.
really tough. There was a gentleman at the dawn of my career, this is 20 something, 25 years ago, who was a big fan of the walking one on one. And I just absolutely love this as a concept.
Oh,
Obviously,
in Silicon Valley, we do that all the time. The weather's always nice. You go walk
yeah,
around the building
yeah.
because there's no
He was
meeting rooms,
brilliant.
anyways.
Yeah, I found, yeah, that's always a fun thing. It's like, you know what, we've done 4 laps of the building looking for
Yeah,
a meeting room. Let's just walk down the road.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
found those walking ones were especially interesting because just by being outside and walking, people would open up about the other things. And as a manager, it's not always appropriate, I know, about the other things. But if there's something serious happening in your personal life, your health, that's going to affect your work, let's at least have some visibility of that. So that
Yeah.
way we can
And we're
cater to
human
it.
beings. We don't. I started and I stopped watching Severance because I just didn't like the show. But the concept of you like your brain is separated in two. That's not how humans
It doesn't
work.
work like that. And I
No.
found just getting people out, they would open up like, actually, there's this thing that's really bothering me. And it could be a work thing or it could be, someone in my family is really not well and I'm really stressed out and that's why my work's dropped off. I want to get ahead of it. And I always found it amazing that in a walk and talk, one of the amazing sales engineers that worked with me in a previous gig used to call it the Aaron Sorkin walk and talk. If you've ever watched The West Wing, like
Yeah,
barging
yeah,
around, it was great. So we would do the Aaron Sorkin walk and talk, and it was just such a nice way to connect and something that we're doing this on different countries. So I wish we could do this walking, right?
yeah. And it eliminates a lot of the distractions. Nobody's going to pop into the room. If you meet at a
Yeah.
cafe, oh, hey, you see people, maybe you have your phone with you, but you're not going to take it out of your pocket and start looking at
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
So it also kind of focuses the attention, but it removes a lot of the other distractions, I think.
Mm.
It's a good technique if you've got the environment for it. Or as
Mm.
I said, in Silicon Valley, oftentimes there was no choice because
There's
there was
no.
nowhere else to meet.
And maybe just closing out the one-on-ones. I think one-on-ones shift when someone's not doing well. So when
Yeah.
someone is struggling, maybe there's a performance challenge there or there's something going on. How do you turn that one-on-one from being that, I mean, obviously it should always be a safe place, but from being that easy, comfortable place to actually we need to have a hard conversation. For you, is that a shift or do you find really the context and the way those meetings run should be able to let anything come up?
So in an ideal world, you would be ahead of it and you would say, "Oh, I already see something slipping here." But it's oftentimes we, as leaders, as human beings, don't want to pay too much attention to the problems. We've got
Mm,
other things to do, and until they become so much that you can't not deal with them, it's just unfortunately it's reality.
yeah.
Um, and we find ourselves then in a situation where you have to have a difficult conversation. Um, I've had people on my team that we've been able to have that. Things have been fixed because the trust was there. And there were extenuating circumstances, or they just were pissed off about how things were going, and they had basically thrown in the towel, and
Mm,
had actually become that bad apple. And it was like,
yeah.
I was able to have a very direct conversation. You're causing a lot of trouble. Your blast radius is bad.
Mm,
Um, what's going on here? And either the person is like, nah, I'm fed up. I'm looking for a new job. And then you start that. If you've had enough trust, you can call that. In other cases, I've had situations where, and I guess COVID was another one of those. It was really, really hard. I wasn't on the ground. I couldn't see things. I'd got one version of reality from this side, another version from the other side. And it got to the point where it was just like, this is what's on the table. The person gets defensive, but there's all this other evidence. And next thing, and this is my rule of thumb, if you find yourself spending a heck of a lot of time thinking about, worrying about, figuring out how to work around a person, it's time to get rid of that person.
yeah. Okay.
You're past the point
Yeah.
of recovering them, because your brain's gone through and thought about, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to do that? And you're wasting energy, and they're not happy. They're not doing well. And unfortunately, in those cases, it becomes a documentation and HR issue because you've gone that far. It To me, I'm to be honest, it's one of the hardest things in as a leader to
Yeah.
to hit that point where you go, I don't know if this person can be recovered. But I also have conversations with people. I think you and I have had them over the years, or you've heard me talk about them. Different people are better suited for different stages of a company. You like to be the smart hero that's running around and there's not a lot of boundaries and you can flip from this to that. And now we're asking you to focus and stick with one sales rep and, this set of accounts, and you don't like it. And this isn't the place for you. You got to go find another really early company where you can do that again because your passion will come back out. And that's almost like a release for some of those people.
Mm.
For me, I also know I can't go to the manage by spreadsheet stage of a company. I've got to go back and build something.
Yep.
So sometimes having the conversation and just helping somebody be aware of their preferences and predilections of where they want to be in a company or the size or the stage of a company is an aha moment, and it's just like peace for them. So every situation is different. Those ones are happy endings. I'm always very happy when I've had that conversation and I
Yeah.
go, wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny that upfront discussion around runways. You used to use the term runways, and that stuck with
Hmm.
me. And it's interesting to have that really early because as an organization grows, there'll always be someone maybe building something new.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you could say, hey, this is the runway for this role. And we know that you're the early
Hmm.
startup person.
Yep.
So now as you get to the end of that runway, is it time to look for something else in the business, a
Yep.
new role, a
Yep.
new team, a new country, a new
Yep.
product? So,
Yep.
so that awareness. But some people freak out at that
Yeah.
discussion around
Yeah.
how long will this role suit you? And it's interesting to hear. I read the Netflix founders book again a couple of
Hmm.
weeks ago, and even as the
Hmm.
CEO, he talks about that. And I found
Yeah.
it so refreshing to say, hey, there's a point in time where your skill set, your style, your role is probably not going to line up.
Yeah. In Japanese, there's a saying, 3 years on a rock, to roughly translate it, and it's you can survive, you can sit there and you can make it through something, you can thrive even for 3 years, but 3 years seems to be a pattern. And Matt Young and I often talked about, after 3 years in the same role, you need to be watching that person and yourself.
Mm,
Do they need something new? Do they need a new challenge? And it's not
mm.
just a promotion. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
do something
yeah,
different. It's a rotation, it's a
yeah.
pivot. 3 years is a good number to be thinking roughly 3 to 5. After that, I think part of it is it just becomes monotonous and you're an autopilot and you lose the
Mm,
passion. You also get sloppy because you just like,
mm.
I've done this before, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. On that, even my most recent conversation with Diraj, um, I was like, I could go back to do an APJ SE leader role, but you know what? I'd be on autopilot in all likelihood. It'd be a new company, it'd be a new challenge, but
Mm,
I'm afraid that I would be too blinders of like, this is the way I've always done it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
put me in a role that's completely different, gives me new challenges. It'll be hard. I'm actually afraid of the very idea of it. But I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll take the challenge and
yeah.
and apply everything I've learned to help other people in these other types of roles grow. But I do think, and it was that moment talking to him last week of, wow, actually, I really shouldn't do that same
Mm,
role.
mm.
And it was always new because it was new technology. But this time, I think I have to shift and could do a completely different role, even. Oh.
Funnily enough, I think the guy that packed up, moved to Japan out of the blue, the whole new country, the whole bit, he's probably got it in him.
Yeah, I'd like to think I do.
So, just
Yeah.
one last thing that I
Hmm.
wanted to cover off with this. What happens when it goes sideways? Like, how do you stay calm? Because again, I see it in early leaders where there'll be speed bumps or there's something goes wrong. There's a challenge. Anything could cause it. And there's that internal panic. And then there's that, oh, I didn't know what I should have done this. I should have been better. How do you stay calm and centered when things are really just going sideways?
First, own up to it. Understand what role you played or didn't play in
Mm,
bringing this on. You just have
mm,
to be very self-aware.
mm,
And if it's something you did, and it's something that you can apologize for and fix, do that. If it's something that you can influence and have a conversation and kind of shift things, do that. If it's something that's just happening around you, that's back to AIC. You just have to figure out, how do I accept and how do I deal with this? Because it's way beyond my control. I can't influence this. I can't control. The only thing I can control is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
how I react.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that moment of going, the only thing I have control over, I don't have control over you and how you react. I can influence you, I can have a conversation with you, but how I react is the only thing I have control over. So, first and foremost, don't go shooting off nasty emails or instant messages. Those things last forever and they cause a lot of damage.
Mm.
Um, don't blow up in a meeting. Take a deep breath, literally, and remind yourself you need to step back from this and give it some time. Passions get high. I've been in pretty heated discussions. There's the difference between, challenging and trying to find the right answer, and that moment when it turns a little bit personal. And you've
Mm-hmm.
got to realize that's happening and step back, because the only thing you have control over is your own reactions. And sometimes removing yourself from that situation, from that environment, is the only thing you can do. Um, when I was traveling all the time, I was running every city. That's also starting my morning, going out for a run, just put me in a frame of mind that made it easier to deal with a lot of things during the day.
Mm.
I think you have to find whatever it is that helps you escape. You can't be on all the time.
Mm.
And for me, the running was a chance. It's amazing how much you think about when you're not really thinking about it, on something, running, swimming, whatever, bicycle riding in your case, probably. Um, so you need to have something that you do that also gives your brain that place, not just in that moment when things are going sideways, but on a regular basis. Um, for me nowadays, it's sitting in the sauna and thinking, but not thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes writing some notes about it afterwards. Um, yeah, I think you have to teach yourself to be reflective and thoughtful, because when the time comes, and if you haven't practiced being that kind of a person, you can't be.
Mm.
So,
And what one thing I how do I put this? People notice the people that are calm, and not everyone likes it. And it's been really interesting. There's things that would worry me and stress me out 20 years ago, 10 years ago when we were
mhm.
working together that would then
Yeah,
happen again a few years. I'm like, oh no, I've been through this. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You're in a psychologically
that's
safe
a big part of
environment.
it.
Let's go
You've
for a
been through
walk
it before.
because you've been through it
It's not your
before.
first time. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
think part of it is you've just got to go through it too. And
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big fan of people just being in a psychologically safe environment so they can
yeah.
just get through it.
And ideally, so I've been fortunate enough, and since this whole recording is about you and your interesting opportunities as a mentor, is having a good mentor, somebody not in your reporting line,
Yeah.
preferably not even in your function. If they're in the same company, it's fine, but in somewhere else, where you go, hey, this happened, and I need to talk through it. And a mentor isn't there to tell you what to do. They're kind of more
Mm.
like a shrink.
Yeah.
And then, have you thought about this? And they just help you kind of do that paradigm shift and step outside of yourself. Having a mentor is a huge benefit. And the times I've really struggled, in fact, when I had a global team at one company, and I had some people in the team who just, they did not accept the fact that I had been made their boss. And I was struggling to figure out how to connect to them. Um, and this guy who was my mentor just walked me through some of his own experiences, and kind of his concept. He called it fundamental attribution error. You're assuming that they're thinking this, but you don't know that. How do you go find out what's really motivating or demotivating or giving them that point of view? So having a good mentor, finding a good mentor as you become a manager, if you want to become a manager, I think is really, really important,
Yeah.
because they've been there, they've done it, and they can help you
Yep.
have perspective.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest there's going to be a theme to all the conversations I do. I think there'll be themes around looking after yourself. I think we'll find a lot of people that whether it's a sport or meditation or sauna, and I think the other one is going to be mentoring. And I really hope
Mhm.
that more people will do both, because it's certainly been a big thing. The number of times I've been
Absolutely.
out cycling, pulled over, got the phone out and written a note because without thinking about it,
Yeah.
something's happened and it's been
Yeah.
figured out.
That's like when I
So
used to write code long, 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 long time ago. You're cranking out, you can't figure something out. You go to bed and you wake up in the morning and it's
you're
just
like,
there.
I
You
know.
you you need to separate yourself from actively thinking and worrying about things sometimes to come
Yeah,
up with ideas, solutions, etc.
yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate you leaning into this little idea I had. I'm
Yeah.
hoping others get something out of this because there's so much
Yeah.
wisdom. I,
I- I'm
I
the
appreciate.
Mark Twain of management. A lot of sayings.
Yeah. It's going to be funny, and I do hope that people are kind enough to watch it this far. And for those of you that have worked for me, and you're like, oh, that's where he learnt it from, because there's so many
Yeah,
things
this is the horse's mouth
that.
right here.
They'll be like, Jeff, this is happening. What do we do? So, and conversely, there's been things that you've taught me. You've had lineage back to where that came from, and things in your early history that you were like, hey, this is what we learned in that startup. I think everyone has to realize it's a journey, and we're all learning from
Yep.
each other on the way.
Yep. Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and every startup, every journey is its own sausage factory and messy and things, and that's how we learn. That's what makes it enjoyable. If it was all
Yeah.
perfect, they wouldn't need us. So,
No, they wouldn't, would they?
no,
Awesome.
no.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again. I'll add
Yes,
you to the
definitely.
to the list.
Yeah. You put me back into the queue after you come up with some other
Yeah,
topics.
we can critique all the other stuff.
Yeah, sounds really good.